Sebastian, meet George Keller. She'll be working alongside you the next 8 weeks. You left out an important piece of information about George Keller, I said. Well, George looked at Vance as well. You didn't tell him I was a woman? I snorted. With a name like George, he's hardly to blame. It's Georgina, she snapped, then smoothed her hands over her skirt and shook her head. I mean, in my personal life, she added coolly. At the office, George is fine. Or Miss Keller will do. I'm not calling you Miss Keller like you're my grade school teacher. I turned to Vance. Why didn't you tell me? There hasn't been a good time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my review of Right Where I Want You by Jessica Hawkins, an enemies to lovers office romance. Georgina Keller has been hired by a local men's magazine to help them get back on the track and stabilize the declining sales. They need to improve, although the main editor, Sebastian Quinn, doesn't really agree. He believes that he can do it by himself. He has the reputation of notorious playboy and a bad boy, which is not very surprising given his great looks and amazing charms. But he is not very keen on working with Georgina. He is more forced into it. So they don't really start on the right foot. But maybe there is something that can help them achieve their mutual goals and even maybe find a way to each other's hearts. Sebastian Quinn is a creative director and the main editor of Modern Man's magazine. He has this reputation of being a playboy and a bad boy who likes to play by his rules. That is the image that he wants everybody to have because of his job at this men's magazine. But the truth is a little bit different. He was born to a single mother who ran away from Mexico, and so he was raised in a very traditional way. But because he looks very good, he has his charms, and ladies appreciate his company, then this is the image that he rolls with. But it's also this playboy image that gives him hard time from the beginning, because there has been this article written about him and the magazine which basically shuns him, and also is a part of why the sales of the magazine have been declining. But as he reveals more about himself, we find out that he is actually very romantic. He can make a proper date. He is a dog lover. He is willing to stand up for people around him. He has this team of his colleagues in the office and he stands up for them. Georgina Keller, on the other hand, she has to deal with Sebastian's unwillingness to cooperate. She has been hired to help the magazine become more popular and increase the sales. She is this woman who is very good at her job. She knows that. But she also suffers from having two personalities, almost as if she was a Gemini, which is very typical for this sign. So when she is at work, she is George. She is this really rough and tough, business-oriented, goal-focused worker. And she is very confident and very good. Although her confrontation with Sebastian sometimes makes her shaky in her knees. And in her private life, she is Georgina. She is this girl who likes to live in her apartment with her very large dog, and she can be quite messy sometimes, and her best friend keeps reminding her that she should learn to stand up for herself because she likes helping people out, doing them favors, and she used to have this boyfriend who let her have it, who let her down, who lowered her self-esteem so badly that whenever something comes up that reminds her of that, she becomes triggered, and it really undermines her confidence. But what I liked about this story is that these two characters, they had their flaws and their strengths, and that made them more human. Even though they were described as looking very attractive and sexy, they still had their shortcomings that they needed to deal with. This book is heavily romance-oriented. We will spend long time with Georgina and Sebastian trying to find their way to each other, although they don't have any trouble straight away admitting to people around them that they are attracted to each other, but never to themselves mutually. So what actually happens is that they mostly banter about things that are related to job, and they make it look like it's all about the work that they have to do together, while they actually learn more about each other and discover all these little quirks and all these shadows of the past that they bring from whatever happened to them not so long ago, what with Sebastian's mother dying or Georgina's almost abusive boyfriend. So it's quite interesting to see that the romance is actually developing on a pretense of working with each other. For example, Sebastian invites Georgina out on a date, claiming that it's all for this article that he's writing and that he just wants to know how she responds, and it takes quite a long time before they actually confess to each other. And it's really funny because they have these friends around them, their best friends or their co-workers, who notice pretty much right away. And so they do all these romantic things without actually admitting any feelings for each other. And it's also nice to see that they help each other with overcoming their fears, overcoming their insecurities. Because Sebastian's mother lived and died in Boston, and that's why it's so hard for him to even go there. So Georgina has to help him with that. And on the other hand, she has all these insecurities from her last relationship, and Sebastian helps her to realize that, you know, not everybody is trying to make her feel worse, and that she has to deal with all these things and realize what she's really worth. So the romantic situations are very nice and sweet, and Sebastian actually doesn't come across as sleazy at all. He's very respectful in many ways, even when he doesn't agree with Georgina. Sex takes a backseat in this story and is a culmination of ever-increasing sexual tension between Seb and Georgina. Therefore, we will have to wait until late in the book, and it is actually quite romantic and involves a lot of talking. Writing in this book is very well done. I enjoyed all these twists and comebacks and the smart banter between the characters, because they are always trying to outsmart each other, and there are also some moments that will really grab your feelings, like you expect or you see that something bad is happening and you really feel this contraction inside you, and then we will see that yes, it's going to turn out well, and we feel how the characters actually see themselves, how they feel about all these things that are happening to them, because when they are actually talking, the writing also explains the thought process behind everything they say. So if Sebastian, for example, says something to Georgina and she starts feeling bad, then in the writing we actually get to read what is going through her head. Why does she feel like that? And how does she come to these conclusions, and how can she say these things that she says. It's not like we will be getting these long paragraphs of exposition. We always get all this information right at the moment when it's relevant and when the characters are actually talking about it. And it's I have to say that even for me it was hard to put the book down sometimes, because I just wanted to know what happens next, right from the get-go, in the beginning, at the scene in the cafe, all the way up to the point when we already see that Georgina and Sebastian are planning their lives together, because despite all this good writing that we get, the story is also a little bit predictable, because as soon as you get at least halfway through the book, you can pretty much guess exactly how it ends. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because at least you will get a very satisfying ending. If Egomaniac is the book to go to for great sex, this one is great for a romance. There is no really big drama or angst, and although it's a little bit predictable at times, it has well-developed characters and is very funny and has some really sweet romantic moments. And with this, I conclude my review. I thank you for watching and hopefully see you in the next video. Have a great night.